we're here with Dr. Rico Short today, and he is the root canal specialist to the stars, not just to anyone, to the stars. And he's out there in Georgia. And I really took a liking to Dr. Rico Short because he's one person who will post things with what he really believes and what he really feels. And he's not necessarily out there just to make everybody happy, but he knows he has a purpose. And I see that. You could tell with what he does every day and how he posts on LinkedIn, Instagrams. And here's the thing is he adjusts to what's going on. Going into tech and doing it, having to deal with all this, it's one of the hardest adjustments, even for me, who I see was born in this tech universe. He does it, and he wasn't born in there. I bet you when you're growing up, it was different kind of things going on. So he's able to adjust to that in order to get that message out. So if I see a person doing that, I'm like, nah, I really want to come in an interview and talk to him. So thanks for coming on today. Yeah, we're excited to get into this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cool. All right, so Dr. Short, if you can just let us know a little bit about your background.
Sure, yeah. I was born and raised in Columbus, Georgia, small town right outside of Atlanta. Raised as a single parent, never knew my father. So my mom just raised me by herself. My dad left when she was probably about 8 months pregnant. He said he would come back, but he didn't. He didn't come back. So my mom just did the best she could. My mom had a high school education, and she was a mill worker. So she made textile materials such as towels and blankets and things like that on a hard concrete floor, come home with lint and stuff all over her. And I'm like, man, that is some amazing work ethic, that this lady put that time in. And in order for her to make ends meet, a lot of times she had to work overtime, 12-hour shifts and things like that, just to take care of me. So, I grew up not with a lot of material things, but I had a strong faith in God. She literally drugged me to church when my buddies out in the basketball courts on Sunday, where I really wanted to be. And I just didn't know how those principles in the Bible that would impact my life later. And just her work ethic. I mean, she stayed in the same job 35 years, and there was no room to move up. You just, made overtime. You just work harder. And so grew up in that environment where we started out, in public housing. And I remember growing up where there were literally roaches in my bed. I got bit by a roach. People don't think roaches bite and they fly. And I said to myself,
I didn't know both of those.
And I said to myself, Lord, I cannot live like this. Wow. Like, I'm gonna have to figure out something different. So I was always, pretty smart guy naturally. I never had to be on me about homework. I just did my homework, just kind of wanted to make my mom proud and my teachers proud. I had some teachers that did invest in me. When I did well on my report card, they would write some nice comments. You guys are probably too young to remember that you actually got a report card with a card. It was actually a piece of paper that your teacher would actually write. You did great in this subject, this and that. They would give you a smiley face and things like that. And that would mean a lot to me because I didn't get a lot of that positive affirmation in my community, and I got it from my teachers. So therefore, I wanted to make them happy. Therefore, I wanted to make good grades. And so when I got to high school, I had a desire to do something in medicine or dentistry. And I was very fortunate to get picked in a mentorship program. And the mentorship program, ironically, they matched me up with a dentist. I had really no real interest in dentistry. He matched me up with a dentist, not only just a dentist, an African-American dentist, and he was the first African-American doctor I ever seen. And so he became my mentor. And he actually became the steering wheel. I already had the engine, but he came the steering wheel for me so I can navigate through, college and dental school and actually worked for him for a while before I went to my specialty training. So, that's kind of a Cliff Note version of my background. I definitely can dive deeper into a lot of that. And then when I finished my endo program in 2002, which that was not my original intent. I wanted to be a general dentist and happy, do a little bit of everything. But we had a little bit of, it was a kind of How do you call it? I call it a David and Saul moment with my mentor. It ended up working out well though, but it was just some tension going back, and I didn't have all the proper documents in place as far as my contract and things like that. And didn't have, I thought I had opportunity to buy into the practice, didn't work out. It kind of forced me out a little bit to look at doing something else. And endodontics was one of the things that I was like, yeah, you know what? I probably can do this, and end up getting into the program and falling in love with it. And here it is 20 years later, literally, as an endodontist. And, it's just been an awesome road full of hills and valleys, but, I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's awesome. Yeah, actually, I remember now that you said that. There was a story you had put out when you went and found your father. I think you're like 42 or 43, somewhere around. I'm trying to remember. It's coming to my mind now, but I saw the story, and I remember you even found a sibling, like another sibling, when going and finding your father. I was like, what kind of story? This was huge for me, And the biggest part about that, within the story, there wasn't really animosity. You had already forgiven. I was like, what in the heck? I really was like that, man. I'm not even, I'll be honest with you. And so I was like, I really don't want you to explain that story, like what you were feeling, I guess, when you actually saw the human, like the person himself that was your dad.
Yeah.
And then your sister, is it your sister?
Yeah, my sister.
Yeah.
So
Come
so
on. That's huge.
basically, I've always wanted to know who my, paternal family, who was on the side. And,
Of course.
and my mom's African American, but I know I always look different from everybody else. People's like, oh, are you Indian? And I'm from Columbus, Georgia, the South. So many people, there are not many Indian people in Columbus, Georgia. So they used to, pick on me, had long hair, and, oh, you're a girl, just stuff. And so I was like, Mom, I want to know who my dad is. And she always said, well, in time, you'll find out. And so one day somebody encouraged me to do an ancestry DNA. And I'm like, I don't need to do this. I mean, my dad is American Indian. I thought TP, Tonto, Long Ranger, that kind of thing, and I did the DNA test and it came back South Asian Indian. I'm like, what? Like, hold on, this is crazy. And so that piqued my curiosity. And my mom knew some basic information, his name, his birthday, and how old he was at the time. So I put that information in ancestry DNA, and that gave me about 4 or 5 people that matched. I took those information, put it in Google, and I got all these information. I said, oh man, this is his number. And it took me months to call this number. I ended up calling the number, I had the guts. I'm like, I'm gonna call the number. This guy probably don't know who I am. And it was the wrong number. So I'm like, all right, so it wasn't meant to be. So then I ended up saying, let me just take these numbers and these names and put them in Facebook. And one of the names was a match in Facebook. So I sent this Facebook message request. I said, hey, I know you don't know who I am. I'm trying to find my biological father. Do you know who this person is? And then a response with all these question marks. Who are you? What do you want? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, this might be something for real. My mom had one picture of my dad when they dated. And so I sent that picture to this person and they responded, OMG, where did you get this from? Wow. I'm like, what do you mean? And she said, well, how old are you? I said, I'm 43. Where do you live? I said, I live in Atlanta. And the person was like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. And she was like, you might be my relative. You might be my brother. And at that point, like literally, I felt like my soul jumped out my body. Like, oh my God, like, what do you mean? And she said, can you call me? She put the number up, and when I was dialing the numbers, literally I was shaking, like, and I was at my office, and I'm like, oh my God, this might be it. This 43 years, and this could be that missing link. And I dialed it, and she answered. She's like, oh my God. She's like, your voice, and this and that. And I'm like, well, who are you? And she said, my name is Melanie. I was like, okay. And she was just like, this is a picture of my dad. I was like, hold on. And here it is. I was born, raised as a single parent. I mean, only child. She was like, you might be my brother. And I'm like, what in the world? I was like, well, where's my dad? Where is he? She's like, well, he's right here sleeping. Do you want me to wake him up? I was like, no. I said, no, don't wake him up. I said, I have to process this. Like,
right.
I can't even like, and she started like crying on the phone. She was like, I just can't believe this is happening. Like, and so I was like, I just can't talk to him. Don't wake him up. I said, I'll just call him in the morning. And so we were actually flying out of town to Miami. It was actually my wife's birthday. We were celebrating down there. So we got to Miami. And then the number from New York called us where they were living. And she's like, hey, Dad want to talk to you. So I said, okay, that's fine. And he said, son, he was like, wow, I didn't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know? He was just like, I'm gonna have to tell. So I know you have a story, you believe what you believe, but I have, can you listen to my story? And I was like, sure, I can listen to your story. And then I'm trying to digest stuff. So my mind, emotions, everything is going well. And he was like, well, at the time, I didn't know you existed. I'm like, what do you mean? He was just like, well, is your mom still alive? I was like, yeah. He said, can you call her on three-way? And I'm like, oh my God, call her on three-way. Like, it's been 43 years. What do you mean call her on three-way? So I hung up the phone. I said, I'm gonna have to call you back. And I called my mom and I prepped and said, hey, Mom, I think I found my dad. She's like, there's no way you found him. I said, I'm pretty sure this is him. He want me to call you on three-way. So she said, okay, fine. Call him on three-way. And he's Guyanese, he's Indian. Guyanese Indian.
Yeah.
And so the first
Okay,
thing he said was, hey, Lois, it's been a while. And my mom just paused. She was like, wow, this is you, Robert. And he said, yeah, it's me. And he said, I guess you didn't do what we had planned. And she said, no, I did not. And at that point, I'm like, what is going on? So, he was like, no, that's him. And we got on the phone and he said, can I fly down to Atlanta and talk to you? And I'm like, sure. So he flew down and he said, well, I need to talk to you. He said, well, in our culture, I'm Indian and your mom's Black, African-American. We're not really allowed to marry. We dated. I didn't know, your mom wasn't supposed to get pregnant. She got pregnant. And, we decided, I paid her some money because we're not going to have a kid. And she decided to mutually get an abortion. And so he said that's what I paid her the money to do that. And that's what she said she was going to do. And that's all I thought. And he said, apparently she changed her mind. And he said, so that's why you were never in my life. And me, as being, Indian of descent, we love our kids, but our males, our boys, like we like we really hold them at a higher standard. And there's no way I would, if I knew you existed, I would have abandoned you like that. And so my whole, like, everything, and he said, you can decide which story you want to believe, but that's my side. And it started making sense. So I had spiritually, I had to process a lot of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't be upset at my mom. He told me his side, which makes sense. And I say, well, God, you don't make any mistakes. So I'm just going to trust you that everything that you design is going to work out for your good. And then, I found out that he had no real spiritual backing. He's atheist. And there's a lot of things that my sister said that wasn't really good when he was younger. And one of my sisters, I have two sisters, said that if he would have been in your life at the early age, there's no way you would have turned out to be the man that you are today.
Wow.
Just because of his belief and the influence that he would have had on you. So, just be thankful of the way things turned out. And at that time, I was just like, oh my God, like God just orchestrated this where, all the forgiveness and just all these things that he was able to put together in my life. And here it is. I'm like, man, where's my dad? Where's my dad? And God shielded me from the side that he did not want me to be involved at the time in my formative years to now I'm an adult. I can see it from both ways. I can see it from my mom's standpoint. I can see it from his standpoint, but yet still love them the same.
Wow.
So, and since then we've developed a really good relationship. We talk often. I visited him in New York. He came down to me. In fact, when I had my eye injury, he came down and spent like a week or so with me, just in awe of, wow, like you really did well for yourself. Like, I see you in magazines, and even at my dentist in New York, they know who you are,
Yeah.
and if things would have been different, your last name wouldn't have been short, it would have been Kumar. You had it, your last name. But and I just learned that, just processing that through life, and that's just my story, but everybody has a story, and I think everybody's story has relevance to be able to be a sounding board to help somebody else get through, because a lot of times we don't understand why things happen in the moment.
In the moment, right?
But down the road, you look back and be like, that epiphany moment, like, that's it. So I just wanted to kind of, so that's kind of the summary of that part.
That's huge. Thanks for sharing that. I do want to pivot a little bit. That was really big. Thanks for sharing that. What would you say then? And this doesn't have to be career-wise, it doesn't have to be, focusing on anything, but what's your definition of success?
Well, the definition of success to me, it's really a personal thing. Success isn't really measured by how much money you have in the bank. And for me, success is measured by the difference that you make in other people's lives. Your ability to be able to, mentor somebody, the ability to be able to help somebody get to the next level in their career, to be able to change lives, whether it's, just mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and to be able to leave a legacy. I mean, that's the ultimate definition of success, because if you have lived this life and you accumulated massive money or influence, but you haven't really been able to change someone's lives, to me, you lived in vain. So that's, to me, the ultimate definition of success is really being able to be an influence, a positive influence in the lives of other people.
Awesome. Cool. So let's say within your practice ownership, how long have you been, let's say, having your practice or owning your practice?
18 years is this year. 18 years of
Wow.
hills and valleys and learning and those kind of things. And it's funny, when you opened up, you mentioned about practice ownership, and no one in my family ever owned a business. I didn't even understand how to read a doggone business plan or balance sheet or none of that. It was just to a point where I actually worked for 4 different people. And I'm like, man, I am building their legacy and I'm not getting any equity. And also how I was treated in some of the places, I felt like I wanted to be able to create an environment that's different from how they were treating me and the other coworkers. And so I was like, you know what, if they can do it, I said, I'm gonna put my faith out there and I'm just gonna figure it out. And I just jumped out there, started from scratch, literally did not buy an existing office, did it old school, and built, I consider, a very sustainable, reputable, business in the field of endodontics. So, based on what you said, I just want to encourage all the listeners. I mean, you can do it too. You don't have to go to business school. There's so many different ways you can learn how to grow a business and things like that. It's just that you just can't be scared. You just have to go out there and do it smart, get a mentor, things like that, which we can go into some of that, if you want. But that's it. You just gotta, if that's where your heart is. And everybody, they're not designed to be an owner.
Right.
And I can go into a little bit of that too, but if you are desired, if that's your heart to be an owner, you need to do it.
Right on. What would you say was some of your biggest challenges, like getting through that in ownership?
Well, one of my biggest challenges is being a specialist. I mean, you depend on your referrals. And so I ended up setting up, in an area where, and I didn't know this at the time, I was the only African-American dentist in the city.
Oh, wow.
And everybody else around me were older, conservative Caucasian males. So they did not, refer to me, to be honest. They rather referred 3, 4, 5 miles down the road to another endodontist. So I had to just I take them out to lunch and show them cases and things like that. And some of them still were just not receptive. And I remember having one incident where I actually leased space from a dentist. And I guess he kind of felt a little bad. It's like, okay, well, you know what? He's leasing space for me. I should send in some patients. So he started sending me a couple of patients to start. And I remember there was one particular incident where I did a root canal. The root canal went well. I was sent them back to him, and they put a post in it. And apparently there was a perforation. So he sent the patient back, and he called me and said, hey, you know what? There's a perforation in here. You need to repair this. And I was like, I can repair it, but I didn't do it. He said, well, you have to make sure you tell that patient that you did do it, because it's going to make me look bad. I've been seeing him and his family for years and this and that. And I said, sir, I can't do that. I said, I can't say I did something I didn't do. And he said, well, if you put that on me, you won't see another patient from me, and I'll make sure that everybody around here won't send you any patients. And I was like, well, you just got to do what you got to do. And I told the gentleman, I said, sir, I didn't do this. This is what the x-ray looked like before. This is what it looked like now. You can see you did not have that in there. Now you have it in. I'll go and fix it. So I fixed it. And he said, well, thank you for your honesty. And it was a Caucasian patient. And so he went and he told the guy that I leased space from, who's a dentist. He's like, no, he didn't do this. You did this. He fixed it. And I didn't get any other patients from him. Still to this day, it's almost 18 years.
Wow.
Well, it's been 16 years actually. And nobody else referred to me. So I'm like, all right, girl, what do I need to do? Do I need to leave here? So shortly after that, my office was defaced with derogatory terms. I even got pictures. They egged it. They called me all kinds of names, N words, B words. And, I don't know I don't know who did it, but I knew I was the only African-American, dentist specialist in that area. And so it was just, one of those things. I'm like, either I can leave now or I can stay. And because of my faith, God was just like, you know what? I want you to stay, because we're gonna get the last laugh on this. And so as I stayed, I ended up doing a root canal on the mayor, and he's like, man, you're good. He's like, I don't understand why these people aren't sending you patients. And he's older Caucasian. I was like, look at my skin color. They're not, they're me coming in to this environment, they're not used to this. And so he was like, I'm sorry, but you're very good and you're gonna thrive here. And so it's been 18 years and we are busier and have a footprint in the whole Smyrna area. I tell people, I said, when I do my lectures, whether it's local and national, I said, there's two famous people in Smyrna. One is Julia Roberts. Everybody know who Julia Roberts is. And the second one is Rico Short. That's
there
it.
You go. Right on.
So anyway, so that's kind of my little, story, about that. And having said that, is I know a lot of other African Americans struggle with that, because they tell me, some of my mentees tell me, hey, I set up in this place and these people don't look like me and I'm struggling. I said, look, I'm gonna tell you something. If you have a great service, you treat people right, and you do a great job and hire a great staff, man, they're gonna come and see you. They may not necessarily like you, but they have to respect you. They have to respect your work. They have to respect your quality. And you don't have to bow down, to what other people are saying. You don't have to be the cheapest person in your market just to get business.
Right.
Things like that. And a lot of times, like, oh man, I got to make sure I get on all these plans so that I can be the cheapest person, so I can at least get bought. And I said, no, I said, if your quality is good, you don't want to be the cheapest person. You don't want to be. You want to be, in my opinion, either right where everybody else is, or even a little bit more expensive, just to pique curiosity.
Right.
So
absolutely.
And and so that's the advice I give to my other mentees and young dentists that are starting on their own. I'm like, just don't worry. If you know that you're supposed to be in a particular place, don't leave based on what's happening in the moment. You have to look long term, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and see how things are going to go.
That's good. So who were some of these transformational mentors to you while you're going through that process and even beforehand?
Yeah, so one of my mentors was, his name is Dr. Hadley, and he helped me out a lot. And he was a general dentist in my hometown. And like I said, we was able to rekindle on the other side. And he kind of, really, really, just encouraged me a lot. Uh, I didn't. I had a couple of older endodontists at the time that encouraged me. One is an icon of he just passed away a couple of years ago. Dr. Sheets out of Nashville, Tennessee. He was probably one of the first African American endodontists in the country. And a couple of other guys that are older endodontists out of Cleveland, Jefferson Jones, and there's a guy that runs the case program there. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I can see his face. And so when we would have our AAE meetings, you know, the American Association of Endodontists, there was literally out of 3,000 endodontists that might show up, they might be 10 of us in the room, you know, and we would just, exchange information and just be able to encourage one another. But one of the things I can say that was really critical out of all of us in that room is that we had a faith in God. And that was the core. You know, when things got crazy and we didn't understand what was going on, we were able to rely on our faith. And that helped us get through whatever we were going through. And so that was one of the things, it was kind of like an unspoken rule that you just knew that, man, I may not know how to get through this situation, but I know who can help me. And that's how we're able to get through and continue to thrive.
That's so good. That's so good. What would you say are some of your routines, whether it's morning routine or evening routine? Because you're very consistent. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
That takes a lot.
Yeah. So that's one of the things where, you know, I do believe in having a routine is super important, you know, and that keeps you organized, you know, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. So when I get up at 5 o'clock every morning, and then I will spend 30 to 45 minutes in meditation and reading the Word of God, reading about Jesus and what he did and how he was able to empower people, and even reading some of the Old Testament Proverbs, which the book of wisdom. I mean, you got 31 Proverbs for 31 days. And even in February, you got 3 extra on the side, you know, so you're able to, you know, really get in there. And I tell people, Baskin Robbins ain't the only one got 31 flavors. You know, God has it too. In the book of Proverbs, you got 31 Proverbs. So, you know, if vanilla isn't your flavor, come back tomorrow. It might be chocolate. So, you know, with that, it's so much wisdom in there. And it's not just spiritual, there's business wisdom in there. There's financial wisdom, there's relational wisdom, there's health, there's so much in there. So that's how I get my day started. And then I would look in Psalms with some prayers and things like that. And then I would work out. I mean, I make sure that I take care of my body physically. So I usually have a workout program of at least 30 minutes to an hour a day. I do take off Sunday. And then I get into the office, and sometimes we'll have a little huddle of a day, you know, and I'll get with the staff and try to see what's going on with them. And then I start my day. I get done every time when I get done every day. I thank God for my patients. You know, I pray over my patients, whether they're there. Some patients feel weird about that, so I'm cool with that. But at the end of the day, you know, I thank God for my patients. I pray that they're healthy and they heal with what I was able to, you know, the service I was able to give them, and be able to just kind of sit there still for like 5 or 10 minutes and just kind of absorb the day. And then when I go home, on my way home, I like to listen to somebody inspirational. I listen to Joel Osteen. You know, I'll listen to somebody like Joyce Meyer. I listen to, you know, just different various inspirational speakers that kind of helps me digest through the day. And there's sometimes, you know, I'm like, you know, I need to listen to, you know, somebody else about business, you know, coaching, you know, people or dental influencers. So I kind of listen to a little bit of that, but I make sure that I have more, you know, positive things coming in me, you know, than just always negative. Now, sometimes I just feel like I'm in a rah mood. You know, I'm gonna listen to trap music coming home. You know what I mean? I'm gonna listen to some Jay-Z. I'm gonna put on. I'm gonna throw some Jay-Z on there. You know, some Lil Baby. Sometimes I get in that mood, and sometimes I'm in a mood where I want to maybe throw in some praise and worship. You know, some Kirk Franklin or something like that. So, you know, it all just depends. You know, I just believe that we all should have some kind of balance in life. We shouldn't be all one way or the other. We should have that balance. So that's kind of, pretty much my routine. When I get home, then it's really family time. I got 2 teenage daughters, which right now they're driving me nuts about dating and all that. And I told them, you bring that boy in here, I'm gonna pull out my long rusty needle. I'm not gonna pull out a shotgun. I'm gonna pull out my long 27 gauge rusty one. You know what I mean? And I'm just sitting on the table. So they tell me, you're embarrassing me, Dad. But I'm like, that's what Dad's supposed to do for teenagers, 16.
Right.
But and that's kind of what it is. I make sure that on Sunday I send some kind of church service, and really be able to kind of get my spiritual checkup in and get refilled at that filling station, so to speak, and start the week.
That's good. Cool.
Yeah.
What are some?
Let me add this too.
Yeah.
I don't work on Friday. I tell people, it's like, why don't you work on Friday? My financial advisor say, man, you know how much more money you can make on Friday? And if you work on Friday, you can do this and that. I said, no, Friday is my day to be able to do things that I want to do, like volunteer. Friday, I may go and volunteer, and do some free dentistry at a homeless shelter. Or Friday is a day where I'm able to go and do a lecture somewhere. Or Friday is a day where I do something called the ADA Success, where I travel to different dental schools and tell them about finding a job and all those kind of things. And people say, well, do they pay you for that? I'm like, yeah, they pay me for that. Man, they pay me $75. $75, let me repeat, $75. This takes like, this might be a day and a half,
Right.
So you do it just because you want to, help people. And so those are my Fridays when my wife allows me to, say, all right, what do you want to do, kind of thing.
So good. So good. What are some things you would tell, now that you know what you know, that you would tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self to slow down, bro. Rome wasn't built in a day. I know you have all these dreams and desires. You're gonna get there, but you don't have to get there overnight. Like, you don't have to look at what somebody else is doing, where they are, and you feel like you gotta rush to get to where they are. Or one of your buddies, oh man, he got 3 practices, man. You only got 1, man. You need to get on it, and tell myself to slow down, because those kind of things did make me feel some kind of way. It felt like, man, he's doing all this, I feel like I'm inept. I'm running behind. So I would tell myself to slow down. I would tell myself to enjoy the moment. I would also tell myself to learn from your mistakes. Don't just try to look at every root canal case that you did, the ones that don't look that great, and feel like you're a failure. The ones that you separate a file. We all been there. You separate a file and you just want to, just throw endo out the door. And learn from those mistakes. Why did it happen? What could you have done different? And maybe it's sometimes nothing. It's just, that's just part of what we do. And that's what I would tell myself, slow down, enjoy, life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And, you have to really enjoy the moment, learn people, enjoy being with people, learn from people, let people learn from you. And we talked about, before we officially talked about, I've been wanting to write my own textbook literally for 12 years. Like, I've been really wanting to do it. I'm like, I want to do it, but never ever had the time to do it and put it to a side and just do it, commit. And I write this, and we may get in some time to talk about it. It's called the short case of the day. Yeah. So I think I am the first person to ever put endodontics on social media. I'm almost willing to bet everything, because I was like, why don't people know what we do as an endodontist? Like, that's it's a tragedy to not have an option. It's a tragedy for a patient, in my opinion, can decide, hey, who do I want to do my root canal? I can go to my dentist, who I love it, or I can go to an endodontist, and nobody know who we are. We're like the best kept hidden secret. And I told my organization about that. It's like, well, you don't want to upset the dentist because they're the gatekeepers and they keep you. I said, I know that, but there's a way we can do it where we don't upset anybody. We're just informing people, and letting them know what we do. And also, we're informing the dentists, let them know what we can do. There's a lot of cases that I put out there that a lot of dentists would have said, oh man, I didn't know that could be saved. I would have took that out and got an implant. And I was like, what if it was your tooth? I was like, man, if it was my tooth, I'm coming to you, because I want it to be saved. And if it can't be saved, I'll move to the implant. So I kind of digressed a little bit, but But anyway, you know, you know, back to what you were saying, you know, it's really important to, um, you know, I think to be visual and let people know what kind of, you know, so resources we have available in this social media world. And which goes back to what you were telling me, is like, man, I had to adapt. Now
Right.
my kids say I'm still behind time because I don't have TikTok. It's like,
Right.
Dad, you nobody don't read Facebook no more, nobody don't read Instagram, you don't have no TikTok. So I'm working on that. But
Right.
so, you know, it's just one of those things where, you know, you try to stay abreast of things and, you know, go from there.
Yeah. What would you say are things after though you became the endodontist, ways in which you still invested in yourself, you know, as opposed to saying, oh, I'm already good at it. How did you improve?
Because I was still making mistakes. And
Gotcha.
I'm like, man, I'm still making this mistake and I want to be
Gotcha.
better at this. So let me go and let me sit down and listen to one of these gurus that talk about how to take out an instrument. Let me sit down. Let me still go to my AAE, you know, annual sessions, because they are people that are researchers that know how to do these things, but they're not in clinical practice. So they can't really take it from a research to put it in hands. So
Gotcha.
I'm like, if I learn from them for their research, I can put it in my hands to actually, you know, transfer it to a patient and also give that information to other dentists and endodontists. So, and I realized that I'm not an academician. You know, I mean, I do have a professorship, a clinical professorship position, but I'm not in there in the lab running these tests on models and seeing how fast I can do this separate. I mean, do this titanium file till it breaks. And
Right.
you know, there's only so much time a day. I'm not doing that, but there are people that are doing that. That's their job. That's their passion, to be able to know, okay, you know, hey, we've been using sodium hypochlorite and EDTA for years. It took almost 10 years for a company to develop, which I won't mention the company's name because they ain't paying me. They paying me, I probably would mention, but that's a whole nother thing. But they have finally developed a solution where you have sodium hypochlorite and EDTA built in. So you only need one irrigating solution.
Gotcha.
And it's amazing. It's like, man, it cuts the root canal procedure from an irrigation standpoint in half. It's really better. And I never would have thought that they can do that. And it's FDA approved. I'm like, I wouldn't have, what I was doing, it was working. Sodium hypochlorite, EDTA. Sodium, I mean, that's been around for 80 years, you know, but had I known about this other thing and brought it to my practice, I'm like, oh man, this makes me more efficient. This saves me at least 10 minutes or 15 minutes on my endodontic treatment, which transfers to, guess what? Finances.
Yeah.
You know, and so anyway, so that's so, but that's a good question though, because at one point I'm like, man, I know everything. I don't need it. I'm wasting my time. They need to have me up here lecturing. You know, they need, you know, and I realized like, no, you don't know everything. And I still go to some GP classes. You know, we have the Hinman course here in Atlanta. I'll still go and listen to what they're talking about with restoring stuff. I mean, different types of crowns and all that. And one of the reasons why, because I have to go through crowns. If you got a zirconium crown, an E-Max crown, I got to figure out, man, what kind of burr I got to use to get through that hard crown without burning up my handpiece.
Right.
You know, so in a sense, I need to know something about dental materials, because if I'm going to deconstruct and take things apart when doing a retreatment, I need to know the proper tools to be able to do it.
Absolutely.
You know, and as that changed with you guys, with stuff, I need to be at least having somewhat of a working knowledge on what's the best restoration for this. You know, do you need a post in everything, or do you need fiber core and all this other kind of stuff?
Right.
Where at one point I'm like, I'm just the root canal guy. I don't need to worry about anything with restorative.
Gotcha.
But I need to give that information to my GPs and like, hey, you know what? We had to do this, that. You know what? We had to retreat. If you're going to drop a post, drop a fiber post. Don't use a cast post. Don't use an activated post, because that's going to screw up the case. You know. So, or if you're going to use a sealer, if you think there's a crack in there, don't use zinc oxide based sealer and cure sealer. Use a bioceramic sealer that's like a liquid form of MTA.
Yeah.
That's going to hopefully, you know, those kind of things that I would not really think that it's important unless I was thinking also from a restorative perspective as well.
Gotcha.
So
That's good. That's really good, actually. Okay. And then the other thing I would want to ask is, I see a lot of dentists, at least for me, shy. And you're able to even go to an AAE meeting and tell them we need to put ourselves out there more. Like, people don't know what we do. What got you there?
well, it's just, I'm like, why in the world do we, and I'm speaking to myself as African American, why do we feel like we always got to take a back seat to everything except for sports and entertainment?
Got it.
We are just as smart as people like Dr. Oz and the doctors. Why don't we have our own show?
Got it.
Like, we need to. And I mentioned that, to the board, to the AE board, and it came across, I'm pretty sure, to them as we're not ready for that yet. And the reason why I know that is because in 2013, I've been writing articles for Dentistry Today forever. And I'm like, I keep writing these articles. I say, why haven't y'all ever featured me on the cover? Y'all got all the other people on the cover, been on the cover multiple times. And say, well, it's politics and they feel like this company and they're buying all these ads. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I said, but if we're here to learn and have a clinical based or evidence based information, I don't think that should be, an issue. So one of the editors who's no longer there, he's like, all right, I'm going to work on something. I think it was my third article or fourth one I submitted, and it was on MTA back in 2013. And he didn't tell me I was on the cover, and I got it and I was on the cover. I'm like, oh my God, and I got all these phone calls and this and that. And a lot of African-American dentists call me, is like, man, I'm gonna frame this. I need you to sign. I'm like, what? It's like, this magazine's been out for 50 years. No African-Americans ever made cover. And so I called the editor and I'm like, man, this is a pretty big deal. He was like, yeah, and you know what? The other people, they did not want me to put you on there. They said dentistry is not ready for an African-American face. And he told me that. Now he's retired now, so he didn't work for dentistry. And I was like, well, what made you do that? He was like, well, I'm going to tell you something. He said, my great-great-grandfather actually helped Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad. This is a white guy.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? He was like, yeah. And I knew I had to do something to uplift African Americans, and you were the guy. And I took the heat for it, and that's fine. And he said, I put you on there, and they had to deal with it. And they did say that dentistry, this was in 2013. I'm not talking about 1905 or 1920. This is 2013. And so he said, you are a voice, and I don't want you to stay silent. Not only just even in endo, which is when you mention the word unicorn, an African American endodontist is a unicorn.
Yeah, for sure.
You especially male.
Sure.
So you need to have a presence there, and you need to let them know, hey, you know what? I have value. I have something I can offer. And still to this day, I have not been invited to speak at an AAE meeting. I'm board certified, or I got because they always say, are you board certified, or have you written articles? Have you written in the JOE? Have you and all these are check marks going down the road. But yet other people who don't even have half the qualifications I have, they get invited and I don't. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to create my own. And by the grace of God, I was able to create my own niche. People follow me around the world, with endodontics. And now that I've, came out with my own textbook that's available, I'm like, well, if you don't give me an opportunity, I'm just going to make my own.
Right.
And so with that, I hope that inspires other people that look like me, or think like me, to say, hey, you know what? If they don't let me in the door, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to create my own. I'm going to create my own door. What you're doing right now, you are creating not only your own door, you're creating a pipeline for other people who don't have the courage or the wherewithal or whatever to put yourself out there. I follow you as well. I see what you're doing. I'm like, man, every time I turn on Instagram, I see this guy's face.
Good.
I see he's talking about business. I see he's talking about expanding your mindset. I see he's talking about ownership. You're the only person out there I know that's doing that in a social media space. But everything that you're doing is an investment in the next generation. They're watching you. You may not be getting, 100,000 likes like maybe Beyonce and Jay-Z, but people are watching you and they're watching me, and a lot of times I have no idea. I feel like I put some good content and I got 2 likes. I'm like, man, they blackballing me on Facebook. Like, what is going on? But you know, I'll get these DMs from random people. It's like, man,
Right,
you are really encouraged. Thank you. And
right.
that right there helps me to keep going.
Come on. That's huge. So what would you say are your top 3 books that you've read in life? Your top 3 books. And I know you've
Well,
written some too. So I always like to ask
yeah,
people who
yeah,
write, what are yours?
yeah. My first book is the Bible. I mean, that's you know the bedrock of everything that I believe and been able to understand and apply to my life. Rich Dad Poor Dad was one of the books that kind of helped me figure out, okay, you know, what's an investment and what's a liability and what's an asset. And as African Americans, I grew up, man, I got to get that 650 BMW convertible. I got to get that. Yeah, I can get some stock. Yeah, I can get some 401k stuff, but man, and at the time, you know, I didn't realize it was a liability because it was something I wanted and my mind had to shift. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not what you have, but make sure you have your 401k in place. Make sure you have 6 months of income just in case you have an eye injury like I did. You know, make sure that you have enough money to take care of your family and your kids. Make sure you have, you know, all those things have to be in place first. And I you know, so reading Rich Dad Poor Dad was kind of like a foundation for me to help me understand finances, business, you know, leadership, things like that. Um, I mean, there's other so many other books. There's a book about King Solomon. I can't think of the title of it. About, you know, King Solomon was the richest man that ever lived, and talks about the things that he did good. He talked about the things that he basically messed up on, and you learn from both of those. Um, also, my first book I wrote, which is called Getting to the Root of Your Problem,
Yeah.
365 Days of Inspirational Thinking. It's kind of like a daily inspirational read that I wrote for people who don't read the Bible, don't understand the Bible. And it's just nuggets of just daily things you can pick up and just read it and get something and go. You know, I call it like, you know, the Starbucks type of approach to inspiration. You know, you just get it, you drink it, you got something, and you go. And then the second book that I wrote was my latest book was In the Eye of the Storm. Talks about my eye injury and how to make it through every storm in life that we will face as human beings. No one is immune to it. You will face some kind of storm in your life, and if you don't have a solid foundation in your, you know, in your spiritual life, family life, financial life, health, all those kind of things, you know, you may not make it through the storm. You know, so I wanted to make sure that I put that information out while I was going through it. And that's the unique thing about the book, is that I wrote the book while I was going through my eye injury and things like that, which I didn't even know if I was going to ever come back to dentistry. In fact, I need to write a part 2 to let people know how it ended, because during it, it was just all my emotions, everything that I was learning, poured into the book to navigate on those seas of you don't know what's going to happen. Now, on the other side of that, by the grace of God, you know, I was able to, you know, recover from the eye injury, and everything that I lost, you know, we got it back double, you know, and, you know, just have to give God the credit to do that, because at that time I didn't think we were gonna make it. So, you know, and I like just picking up other books to read. You know, I just, you know, titles and stuff sometimes kind of skip my mind, but it's the content, you know, that I'm more connected to. And I'm pretty sure there's other ones out there that you can pick up, but at the end of the day, you know, you are your own book. You are, as you live in your life, you're writing your own story.
Wow.
And that's why I think it's important for everybody to journal, you know, write down things that happen, you know, because somebody need to read your story. You have your own book, and there's nothing wrong with reading somebody else's story, and that's important, but you have your own story that you can contribute to the world as well.
So good. That's huge. You know, you said something when you said you lost it and then you gained it back double. I'm starting to notice a pattern with that's the way this thing kind of works. I mean, you know, there was one time too, I sold everything I had, everything, gave all the clothes, everything away. And within within 11 months, and this is recently, is 2.5 times it. It's like the
Wow.
more I've learned, the more I let go of what I think is me. You see what I'm saying? Especially just like material things. I, I, I learned how little it was that I was thinking. I'm not joking when I say over and over and over. It always reminds me of that guy in the Bible went to Jesus and he now said, how do I enter the kingdom of heaven? How do I enter the gates? The disciples were next to Jesus too as well, you know? And Jesus said, you gotta sell all your belongings and come follow me. You know, disciples were asking Jesus too, like, yeah, like, okay, how is it? Like, I really want to know. And dude said no. He was like, no, I'm good with it. Turned around with this. And little does he know that what he really had was so small in comparison to what, like, gosh, it's. And so every time when I hear these, like, because it keeps coming up, I'm like, yeah, that's just a normal, that's the way it actually is. It is.
Man, that's a, not only if that's a spiritual principle, but that's a universal law.
Yes, it
That's a
is.
universal law. That
I love
that
that.
will work if you believe in Jesus or not. Like that's just how it works. That's
Correct.
like gravity, man.
It is.
It works. And even with my eye situation, I was trying to hold on. I was selling stuff on eBay. I actually put my practice up for sale.
Wow.
Everything, man, because 7 months with no income, and I live a nice life and stuff. I mean, and I'm just like, there's no way that this is gonna be able to be sustained. And the only reason why I didn't sell my practice was because they wanted to put me in a 20-mile restrictive covenant. I'm like, man, that's too far. If I get my eye stuff back and I can't even practice in my town, whatever. And thank God I didn't, because after I had this surgery that this guy did a miracle on my eye, I was able to come back even in the midst of COVID. Everything was restored, and that's a whole nother, man. It was to the point where I'm gonna tell you, people that didn't even like me sent me money.
Wow.
They didn't even like. I knew. I'm like, man, these guys. This guy was one of my competitors. He was hate. They was like, man, I don't know. I just feel compelled to send you. Here's a check, $2,000, $3,000. I ain't asked nobody for nothing. Somebody actually sent me, and I still don't know, as an anonymous donor. They sent a certified letter to my office. I'm thinking, okay, who is this? Somebody's trying to sue me, whatever. It's like it's an attorney, whatever. And I open it up. It was a letter, and it had Jeremiah 29:11. The things I have for you are good, but trying to prosper you, to give you a good future, blah, 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 blah. God is good. And man, it was like, probably, it was over $1,000 cash in there. Still to this day, I do not know who sent me that. I took a picture of that. I'm like, man, this is the hand of God working. And he just took care of us. Now on the other side of this, man, I'm doing better I am now that I haven't been doing in 18 years.
I hear that.
We're booked till April. Like, we can't even see people. Even if celebrities want to come, like, man, we can't see you, bro. Like, I ain't coming in on Friday. I used to do that, but I'm trying. That's not, so it's just like when he says he will fill your cup, man. When you open up, when I just say, all right, God, I don't know what else to do. I'm just gonna put it all in your hand. I quit. Man, it just, everything just opened up, just like what you had mentioned. And the thing is, man, we think so small, man. God's plan for us is so big. If he showed it to us, man, we wouldn't even believe. We're like, nah, that can't happen.
Right.
But it's when you release it. It's not when you hold it. Oh man, I gotta hold it. It's when you release it, and then you realize, like, man, like, it comes back to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over. And that's just how it is. And when you learn that, which is probably one of the most important things I think we're talking about today, because a lot of us, when we're stressed out and we're in a tight financial situation, we want to hold on to everything.
Yeah.
But when you give and you say, all right, God, I trust you.
Yeah.
Hey, when you walk out on water like Peter did, when he looked at Jesus, he was able to do the supernatural. Correct. He was able to walk on water. But when he took his eyes off Jesus and put him on the situation, the wind, the storm, the wave, he started sinking.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing. When we say, hey, I know all this stuff going on around me, but God, I'm just going to look at you, and I'm going to trust you and your principles. I mean, what you just brought up about the rich young ruler, man. And I know Jesus was kind of like, how you have a picture, a very wealthy man that's trying to talk to this kid about, give me this little teddy bear.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I want to keep it.
Yeah.
And he had got behind his back. He has like the huge one, like
Right.
with $1 million in it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want your teddy bear. I just want your heart. That's it.
Right.
And then when he has that, man, you got the keys of the kingdom, bro.
See.
And once you have the keys of the kingdom, there's nothing that can stop you. You mean you're really, an unstoppable force. And unfortunately, the rich young ruler, his mind was, like you said, man, his mind was too small. Jesus was like, bro, even the stuff that you got, I own it.
Exactly.
The Bible says the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, everybody and everything as well. So everything, the thing that you got, it's mine. It's just on loan to you. I'm just trying to help you out. I don't need your stuff.
Right.
But if he would have gotten that, man, if he would have said, okay, all right, I trust you, man, this guy would have had so much more. He was just like, bro, like, I don't even want, it's just too much.
Exactly.
It's just too much.
Exactly.
I gotta give this stuff away.
Yeah.
Same thing with, with Zacchaeus when he climbed the tree and stuff like that, man. Oh, man, he said, man, when he found out, like, it's an abundant mentality.
Yeah.
It's not a limited mentality. He said, man, if I defrauded anybody else, I would give them 4 times of what I defrauded them of. Because when he got around Jesus, he got an abundant mentality. And I think going back to what you're doing and what your platform is about business ownership and expansion, scaling, all that kind of stuff, I'm trying to wrap my mind around it.
Yeah.
Because I believe I have things in me that I can scale, but it's like, all right, you've done enough. You're good right now. And I'm like, nah, I think I can scale it. I just got to get the right people around me to show me how to do it. I don't know it all, but people like you, other people that, have the gift, I'll call it, of scaling and business and expansion, those things are huge, and not only just for us as African Americans, just people in general, because there's a lot of people that think small. There's more people that think small than think large.
Yeah. I was going to do the last question, but this one came that's really important to me because I see that you're a family man too, and you're able to balance all these other things. And it's actually one of my highest values is really the 2-parent household from growing up, just what I saw. And from my dental office, when I had to see mothers bring their children in or rush in after work, like I still don't get to this day how they do it. What made you say, I'm going to be this type of family man? I'm going to be around. I'm going to be this type of person to my wife. I'm going to raise my children this way. I'm going to stay. What in you caused that? You know what I mean? Like, help me just explain that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I knew of all the deficiencies that I had because my dad wasn't there. Okay. There's a lot of stuff I had to go through. There's a lot of stuff I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn things from crazy uncles.
Okay. Hold on, it went out there.
Can you hear?
Yeah, now I can. It came back.
Oh, sorry. They were saying, I think my earpiece went out, but to be a family man, you got to have all these women and this and that. Right. And I was thinking, oh man, is that what it's like to really be a man? I got older, I'm like, no, I don't think that's what it is. And I said to myself, when I do get married and have a family, I want to be committed because, my children, they are going to look up to the family unit. And I think that's one of the reasons why the world is so crazy is because they have broken up the family unit, the family as God designed it to be.
Yes.
And I think if you have that, you'll have more respect in the community. You have more respect in the workplace. You would be able to teach work ethic and what that's about. And I'm not saying that family is going to be perfect, but at least having that unit there that you are able to give your kids the best of the best. And I'm not saying that you can't do it being a single parent. My mom did a phenomenal job with me with what she knew, but there was a lot of deficiencies that I had to learn the hard way because I did not have that positive male role model in my life, as a young man. So that is so important. And I've had to learn how to reprioritize that because a lot of times I get so caught up in the business. I get so caught up in the endodontics. My wife was like, you posting that case today? It's 5:30. You need to be at home. Like, oh shoot, that's what time it is. And so I have to be like, all right, I have to cut myself off at a certain time. If it doesn't get done, it just won't get done. I have to go home and take care of, of my responsibilities. And also I'm able to communicate that to my wife. Like today, like my daughter's getting ready to turn 16. My wife is shopping by herself downtown. And she was like, you sure you want me to go by myself? I'm like, not really, but I promised my buddy that I'm going to do this podcast.
I appreciate that.
So, so she said she understood and gave me the green light to do that. So the family unit is just so important. I think that as we are able to continue to keep that, we will have some pillars of children to be able to stand strong when they feel like, oh, it doesn't exist, or it's not that important, or you don't have to really do it God's way. There's a different way, and it'll be okay. And, that's to me, that's the bedrock for any really strong community is a family unit that God intended.
Absolutely. All right. So Dr. Short, what is it that I say you would want to be known for? What is it? Yeah. What is that for you?
That's a good question, man. I just want to be able to be known for is a person that can walk with kings, but never lose the common touch.
I love that. I remember you saying that.
And that's it. I want to be the person where I'm going to treat you the same, whether you're the president of the United States or you're the janitor cleaning a local Walmart, and I want to be able to impact you in the same way, give you something that can take you through, if not the next day, the next couple of years, whether it's some kind words, whether it's advice, whether it's finances, physical finances, or something that be able to make this world, a better place so they can pass that on to the next generation.
That's good. Well, Dr. Rico, sure, we appreciate you taking this time today. You really didn't have to be, you could have really gone with your wife to the mall, shop for the daughter, but you really, decided to take this time to really pour into the next generation. And I know it's going to multiply tenfold. I know it. I feel it. So I appreciate your time, and have a good rest of the weekend.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And also I appreciate what you're doing, man. You are the next generation leader. You're a thought leader. You're doing a lot of stuff. I can't wait to read the books I know that you're going to produce if you haven't already. I know I can see the books in you. I can see, on the stage, presenting, not just dentistry, about life, about business, about family. Yeah. And, I already see it in you, man. So just keep on moving forward. I appreciate you. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. All right, Doc. Have a good one. Yeah. All right. Y'all too. All right. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Visionary Dentist podcast. We hope you implement this information and become majorly profitable. For coaching with me, go to workwithdremdin.com/free gift. Also check out my YouTube channel at Toks Emdin, and check me out on Instagram at toks.emdin. All right, make your visions real.